Hey, what's up, everyone? We're live. It is Gridiron Gurus. It looks a little bit different this week. I'm Sam Bando. You may know me as the host of Bando's Breakdowns. And to my right is Ben Cruz, co-host of Inning for the Cycle, also contributor to the Football Forecast on the ETP Network. Ben, how are you this morning as we fill in for Trevor?
Yeah, doing well, Zen. Glad to be able to fill in for Trevor. Hopefully, Trevor's obviously doing well for what he has going on, but glad to be on here and talk some college football.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Just a few quick reminders before we get out of the way. Starting off, the platform we're on playback. So if you guys haven't signed up and joined our community, you can do so right now. It literally takes 15 seconds and it's free. And you guys won't regret it. You'll instantly become members. Playback.tv/ETP network. Just to briefly explain kind of what we do. We do live streams almost every other day at this point. We're doing NBA, WNBA when that's in season. Hopefully, when the college football playoff rolls around, we get those games again. We got at Major League Baseball. We were able to do the World Series. When you say, hey Ben, that playback it's been a pretty good benefit to us over the last year and a half or so.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. For people that love football, we're gonna obviously have a full day of NFL Red Zone tomorrow, totally free. So, if obviously people that love Red Zone, they obviously don't want to deal with trying to find it. You can obviously come to us, and obviously we'll have that for the majority of tomorrow. We'll also tomorrow as well too have NFL Gridiron, which is basically our version of the NFL today. It's going to be Michael, Grant, and Nick, and then hopefully me specifically kind of throughout tomorrow because I will be at my job. But that's every single Sunday, kind of a pregame show, and then basically straight through Red Zone. So obviously we have that, and then like you mentioned, Zan, we obviously have throughout the week. We have majority of us, on a Monday and a Tuesday, usually doing like some basketball games. Sometimes also on Fridays too, because obviously Fridays is a big basketball night, and Wednesdays as well. So it's all kind of all put together. And obviously, this show obviously every single Saturday, obviously usually with Trevor, but obviously we're taking over for him right now. So pretty much you can really just find us really everywhere. I mean, really just any type of sport, we're pretty much going to have it. And obviously the World Series too. We had Game 7 on here. We obviously, TikTok and everywhere specifically kind of blew up. With obviously how great it was. So
Oh
you
yeah,
really you
absolutely.
really can't beat what we basically have here. We're very very grateful for it as a network, and wouldn't be without you guys obviously coming on here to obviously make this all happen.
For sure, that's very, very well said. And speaking of some other stuff that we have going on, without further ado, let's shout out our commercial sponsor here, Novig. That's what we use for all of our odds and all of our different plays. So, without further ado, here we go. Gridiron Gridlock is powered by Novig, America's number one sports prediction market. Available now in 35 states, but in a matter of about 8 days, it'll unfortunately decrease to 34. But for now, including California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and New York, I know that you're 10 times more likely to win long term compared to a traditional sports book because you're playing against real users and not the house. You can sign up today and use the promo code ETB Network. That is ETBNETWORK for exclusive bonuses. Novig, where fans play smarter, must be 21 or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. And it's very briefly, Ben, you've been using Novig for a little bit now ever since we linked up with them. What has your Novig experience been like, and have you enjoyed it so far?
I don't personally haven't been using it much. I know obviously we have it, but it's actually kind of something I don't use a lot. But I do know a lot about it. It's obviously it's a great overall kind of way where you can pick your overall games. You'll be able to get coins specifically from it. And obviously it's just one of our other great partners that we obviously use. So hope to use it a little bit more than I have been, but it's a great overall platform for a partner.
For sure. And for those of you who have never seen this show before, we are going to take you all the way up until kickoff of the noon Eastern windows. We're going to try to preview and capsule as many of these major college football games this week in week 13 as we possibly can in the time that we have. So, Ben, are you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so let's start in one of your favorite places in about, let's see, 55 or so minutes. Columbus, Ohio, big noon kickoff. Ohio State one win away from making the Michigan game in Ann Arbor this upcoming Saturday in about a week or so, a colossal one. But first, Ohio State has to win the Senior Day game against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights team, still fighting for bowl eligibility. Ben, what do you think of this game this Saturday for Ryan Day and the defending champs?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this team has been rocking and rolling for the majority of this season. Obviously, trying to repeat as college football playoff national champions. Obviously, after last year, but yeah, I mean, obviously, today the spread line is around 30,
Hmm.
which pretty much kind of tells me that we should be able. I don't know, cover fully that number. I mean, that's a really big spread line, even
Yeah, I
with
don't
the
know.
football.
I don't know if they can do that considering that Rutgers has been mainly competitive for much of the year, even if their record doesn't show it.
Yeah, and too, I mean, obviously, I don't know the injury report as of right now, but Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are two guys specifically right now that are on the injured list. And I think specifically, for Jalen Saying, obviously, those are two guys specifically that have to be healthy, especially for next week, against Michigan. Obviously,
So
that's kind of a big game.
unfortunate news, multiple sources, 247 Sports, 11 Warriors, etc., etc. Cardinal Tate and Jeremiah Smith are out today against Rutgers.
Mhm. Okay, well, that obviously explains it. So they probably won't cover that number then. I'd say
I don't think so either.
they probably will use a lot of C.J. Donaldson out of the backfield, Bo Jackson, two guys specifically that have done very, very good. And then obviously use guys like Brennan Ennis, at receiver. He's kind of a younger guy. They're going to be probably able to use some pieces, just because that, it's obviously a very deep, talented group that Ohio State has. But those are of course kind of the two heads of the snake, at least in the receiving core. And I think Tate obviously missed last week, so I'm a little bit more concerned about him specifically. Jeremiah Smith is more undisclosed injury, so we will obviously have to kind of see what happens. And obviously, it's very tough news, but you obviously want them to play for the big one next week. So I'd rather, obviously, if anything, if they're obviously going to miss this one, I think they should be able to miss, obviously, this game against Rutgers, a team you should be able to beat specifically without your two main guys. It might be a little bit closer, at least to start, but I think they should be able to pull away because they should be able to kind of use different type of ways to kind of beat them, whether it's through their running game, maybe a little more play action. And I think next week specifically, they just need those guys because I'll be a little more concerned if those guys are out for next week.
Yeah, so just to give you guys a little bit of a big picture where we're headed, what today means for Ohio State. This according to CBS Sports and multiple sources, but I think CBS Sports lays this out the best. Here is this scenario, plain and short, for Ohio State to get to Indianapolis and play in the Big Ten Championship. It's actually more simple than you might think.
Mm-hmm.
If Ohio State wins the last two games, they're in, no questions about it. If they go 1-1, here's a little caveat. So if Ohio State somehow loses today to Rutgers, which would be a colossal upset.
Gridlock actually, Zen, and sorry to cut you off, it did drop a little bit to 28.5. That's probably because of the two guys that they're out. So I do obviously apologize, obviously, for correcting, but I just did see that.
Good to know. That still is a 4 touchdown cushion though, so that
Yeah.
still makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Anyway though, if Ohio State beats Rutgers and Michigan, as I just alluded to, they're in the Big Ten title game. But if Ohio State loses to Rutgers but beats Michigan, Ohio State would miss the title game if Indiana were to win out, which would mean they have one game left, which would mean beating Purdue. And there's an and to this. If Oregon wins out, which would mean that Oregon would have to beat USC and Washington because the Ducks hold a better record against common Big Ten opponents. If Ohio State beats Rutgers but loses to Michigan, the Buckeyes miss the championship game if Indiana and USC win out. So essentially, Ben, the Buckeyes control their own destiny to get in, but if they lose one of these last two, it's either tough sledding or they don't get in at all. What do you think of the scenarios I just laid out?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally they really have no excuse to. I mean, they've been pretty much shown all year that they've been arguably the best team in college football. So, obviously it's a big game today, and obviously we'll talk a little more about it between Oregon and USC later on today. Um, and then obviously in Indiana obviously headlined by Mendoza. It's obviously done his thing. He's done very very well. So it's going to get really tight to the end. And with the college football committee that if Ohio State obviously loses a game like today against Rutgers, but then obviously beats like they're obviously going to take every single type of net bit. And I think just the easier way to do it is just to win out. And
Yeah.
the only unfortunate thing that's happened recently with Ohio State is they haven't been able to beat Michigan. And we specifically thought kind of with a team like last year, Michigan definitely wasn't the stronger team like Ohio State, but they went into Columbus and found a way to pull out a very ugly victory. And I think a lot of people, including myself, were pretty much like, well, if we couldn't beat them last year, when we were going to ever be able to beat them? And of course, didn't know myself, but we ended up kind of riding the table to win the whole entire thing. But at that point in time, I think a lot of people, including myself, are very like, here we go again type of thing, right? So I would just say, just hopefully win out, and obviously go into the big house next week. It's gonna be very very tough, but just to win out and just kind of control your own destiny, like you mentioned.
Yeah, so speaking of Michigan, there is a path for the Wolverines despite being 8-2 overall for the year. Um so here's what here's what gives me the hairs that stand up on the back of my neck as someone who's a Big 10 stan, because if Michigan beats Maryland today, which is very likely possible. When I picked the game on Bando's Blitz, they were a 2 touchdown favorite in College Park today. But Michigan can still win by some miracle. Or not win, but can advance to the Big Ten championship game on December 6th by some miracle if one of the following three scenarios happens. So if Michigan were to beat Maryland and Ohio State, and if Indiana somehow, some way gets upset by a winless in the Big Ten, at least Purdue team,
Oh
Michigan is in.
wow,
The second scenario, which actually is more likelier than not. I mean, you may even agree once I read it to you. If the Wolverines beat Michigan and Ohio State, and Oregon beats USC, but Washington beats Oregon, they're in the Big Ten championship. Um, let's see. And then that would play, obviously, that would allow Michigan to play Indiana in the championship. Then finally, the last scenario is if the Wolverines beat Maryland and Ohio State, and USC beats Oregon and UCLA upsets USC, they're in the Big Ten championship. Since Oregon holds the tiebreaker advantage head to head with Michigan, the Wolverines do need one more loss from the Trojans, dating back to that game in I think it was late September. So that is Michigan's path in. So if Fox really wants the game to be as big as what people are hyping it up to be, it really needs Michigan to take care of business later on today in College Park. So
yeah. Yeah, and I think specifically, obviously with the Buckeyes and Michigan, I think it's best specifically for college football if, both teams obviously do their thing, and then of course next week has massive implications because I think that will be a massive crowd draw, and I think that's pretty much what everybody wants.
yeah, and then just really quick, let's gloss over these other two because it's important to highlight everyone. There still is a path for USC to get in, which actually doesn't seem as horrible as one may expect, given past history. But USC sitting at 8-2. USC needs to upset Oregon and Austin. That's step one, and
Mhm.
then step two would be Ohio State needs to lose to Michigan. So really,
It could happen.
all
That
USC needs to do is take care of business today. So
Yeah, no, I could because we've had a lot of really tough success against Michigan. I mean, I I'll I'll be honest. We haven't had our chance to really overcome them. They've really kind of been our kryptonite. So if if we lose, right, and they obviously do their thing, they have a chance.
Yeah, they have a shot for sure. And then finally, let's go over the last scenario here because Oregon still has a path in, but Oregon needs a lot of things to happen. And despite only losing to Indiana as their lone conference loss and their lone loss of the year, but it really, really, really hurt Oregon's chances to go to the title game, given what's been going on around the league. So let me kind of go through this for you as well. So the Ducks have to win today, and they have to beat Washington, and Michigan has to beat Ohio State. Then the second scenario, which is a lot more wacky, and I don't think, um, and I don't think the second scenario is going to remotely happen. But the second scenario, if the first one doesn't occur, the Ducks have to beat USC and the Huskies. Ohio State has to lose to Rutgers, but they have to beat Michigan, and that would be their other only pathway in to the Big Ten championship. What is almost guaranteed at this point, Ben, 99.9%, is that Indiana will be playing somebody. It's just a matter of which team. So,
Yeah, no, it's going to be. This is obviously what we live for, right? In terms of a lot of teams that are pretty much going to be right at the end, and teams like Oregon, headlined by Dante Moore. He's been very, very good this year. Obviously USC and others. A lot of the two lost type of teams, theoretically speaking, Zan, have a chance. It's obviously not a big chance, but you know, today specifically is a massive big day when it comes to obviously teams that have two losses because they probably are taking a look at maybe some teams that could get upset. Every single week you obviously have that upset that people don't really expect. And if that happens, then it kind of opens up the door for some of these two lost teams to maybe kind of give the committee a chance in which, all right, look at Oregon, right? If they do their job and beat USC, and then you look at a team, heck, like us, we somehow lose to Rutgers. I mean, you never know. So,
no, you don't. Taking a look at some of these other Big Ten games around the conference, there's a couple to highlight today. The final, at least for now, the final game that will be played, at least involving Northwestern at Wrigley Field, Northwestern hosting Minnesota. Northwestern has stumbled after losing four straight, trying to still keep its bull hopes alive and clinch today, playing a Minnesota team that's been really streaky. What do we think of that game? And if you had to pick, who would be your pick in that one?
Northwestern, who again?
Oh, it's Northwestern against Minnesota.
Oh man, I feel like that's gonna be a close game. I feel like two teams that I think didn't Northwestern play at Wrigley last week as well too. They played. I
They
think
they did. They played Michigan and they were winning the entire game essentially. Or no, they were winning in the second half, forced five turnovers, but still lost the game 24-22.
that's hard to do. Forcing five turnovers and still coming up short. That's hard to do. I think that Northwestern. I'm going to go to Northwestern's end. Obviously, back obviously again at Wrigley, and I think just for Minnesota, I think it seems like a team specifically that probably will have to have a lot kind of going their way. I mean, at Northwestern caused five turnovers against a very, very good team last week. They're probably very hungry to kind of get that game back to them and find a way to win that game this week.
Okay, fair enough. So we disagree on that. I took Minnesota on the episode earlier this week.
Mhm.
Taking a look at another game here, a game I think with a lot of I guess interesting storylines. Just given I think it's more of a coaching storyline than anything else. But Illinois now finally in the college football playoff rankings at number 21, looking to keep its perfect November alive as Brett Bielema returns to Madison to take on a Wisconsin team that's just had a really, really, really rough season under Luke Fickell. They are keeping him around next year, but I just think this is too tall of a task, even for the final regular season home game for Wisconsin. Who do you have, the Illini or the Badgers tonight?
I got the Illinois. That's been a team specifically that's been really competing all year. And I've seen a lot of Wisconsin. Obviously Ohio State play them around a year. I've seen them in a couple other games, kind of just looking, watching some college football throughout the year. Their offense they haven't done anything via their offensive game at all this year. And I think that, Illinois is going to be able to put up points. And I just think that it's not a good recipe for a team to put up points, like Illinois for Wisconsin to make it a game.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm picking Illinois as well, and again, Illinois is 2 wins away from going 9-3 for back to back years, which I don't think is potentially being talked about enough. But that's
Right.
just me. But let's talk about the biggest Big Ten game of the day, the game that everybody's excited about. CBS 3:30 Eastern. USC traveling to Autzen Stadium. College football playoff implications galore, as we've already kind of gone through. What are your early thoughts on this game? What is your read on it? And do you think this is a chance to be a classic? Because I've done stories on this for much of the week, and a lot of the analysts are split. Some people, Ben, think that Oregon USC is going to be an instant classic and it's going to be close and it's going to come down to the final possession. While other people believe that Oregon is going to go in and trounce USC and make a statement that they deserve to be a one-loss team that's seated decently high in what's going to be a very deep college football playoff field, if you will. What do we think? Do we trust the smarts of Dan Lanning, or do we think that Lincoln Riley has finally figured things out amidst all the smoke, if you will, of him being rumored to potentially leave USC, which I think would be a huge mistake. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a good game. You obviously got two teams. Obviously, USC is a two-loss team, so they're going to be really desperate to try to get one there and make a statement, especially against a team like Oregon, who's a very, very good team
Yeah, I mean, I think
at
this.
home specifically.
I mean, I think Ben, and I'm sure you might agree. I think this is their season. I don't think they're putting in a three-loss USC team in the playoff. I
Yeah,
don't. It's not. It's not. It's not happening.
I agree with you. And right now, currently the spread line is Oregon at 10.5, which I think USC is going to cover that number.
I do too. I
I
do
think it's
too.
going to be a very, very close game. I mean, if I obviously had to pick, but I do think Oregon's just a very tough home field advantage environment. Dan Lanning, I think, is going to be able to get those guys ready to go. And obviously, you're kind of seeing. You talk about, of course, a lot of the headline guys, Arch and Mendoza, but Dante Moore has been absolutely incredible this year for the Oregon Ducks. He's really kind of been the
He
catalyst
really has. He
for the
really
team.
has. He stepped into his zone, and he's come into the role post Dylan Gabriel and done really well. And he's found his group of receivers. And honestly, I think they've flown under the radar. I don't think they're getting enough respect for how good they actually are. With their only loss being to an Indiana team that is just elite as it'd be with talent everywhere. So I think them having only one loss going into today, and it's against the number 2 team in the country, is nothing to snooze at all. So
And I'm looking at Dante Moore, and one of the biggest things I've been seeing with him is, I mean, obviously outside of the game at Iowa, in which it was obviously a very, very crappy game. So there, of course, there was going to be a turnover maybe from here to there for him. And then the game against Rutgers, he had one pick, but he had also 4 touchdowns in a game in October. So since October 11th, Dante Moore has only thrown a total of 3 or less interceptions. He's been doing very, very well with being able to, minimize the turnover battle. And I think USC is going to have to find a way to get some turnovers on him. And he's done a very, very good job of not keeping it in harm's way. And I think that USC is going to have to be able to control that clock, specifically on their end. They have some guys that could be able to control the clock.
yeah,
Uh,
they're gonna have to get Makai Lemon really involved today. I think.
yeah, Lemon obviously, and too, their running game too. I mean, obviously headlined by King Miller, so
Right.
he's obviously going to have to do his thing. He averages 7.3 yards a run. 99 carries, 5 touchdowns this year for him. But also Oregon has a good guy, Noah Winnington as well too. Running game on that side, he has 5 touchdowns, 8.2 yards of rush. So on both sides of things, it's going to be an absolute, I think, an absolute shootout of a game, and I'm excited for it. I really am. I think USC. If I had to pick a score, Hmm. Uh, I'll go 27-20 Oregon.
Yeah, I think Oregon wins, but I think USC does enough to cover. And I'm going to go a step further and say I think the game is going to be won in the final minute. What do you think?
Um, I could see that. I think it'll come down to where Oregon probably gets to like a two-score lead, and USC cuts it to a one-score game, and they have to get the onside kick. I think it's just going to be really really tough to kind of go toe to toe, but I think USC is going to make this a game. They're going to somehow some way make it a game. I think Oregon is going to have a lot of the control in the second half, but I do think that USC is going to put up some points to kind of make it a close one.
Fair enough. Moving over to the night slate now. This is the game on NBC. It's a big one if you like teams that are fighting for, I guess, conference standings and for bowl eligibility, and that's exactly what we have here in State College. Interim coach Terry Smith, 2 games to go for the Nittany Lions. If Penn State wins both of them, they are bowl eligible at 6-6 after a really rough season that started out with so many expectations against a Nebraska team that has took themselves out of the college football playoff conversation with a couple of losses. Right now, the spread is Penn State by a touchdown and a hook or so. What do we think of this game? And do you think Penn State keeps its momentum rolling with 1 week to go, where it needs to win its final 2 to become bowl eligible? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the departure of James Franklin a couple weeks ago, and then of course that really tough loss in which they had it. They had it against Indiana. Mendoza obviously making that throw to the receiver, who I mean, he made one of the best catches I think we've ever seen under a minute left. That was one of the best throws, one of the best catches that we have seen. So Penn State has basically kind of been there for a while, and in these games. I mean, Nebraska, obviously, they're a 3-loss team. Penn State, obviously, a 6-loss team. I'm going to take probably Penn State to pull this game out. Granted, because of their home. And Singleton is obviously still one of the best guys in the running game. He's really kind of carried that offense after the loss of Drew Aller for the whole entire season. So they have to kind of find a way to kind of get themselves to be more of a running type of
Well, and also it's the battle of the backup quarterbacks too, because Rayola's also hurt. So
Rayola's hurt. Yeah, it's a battle of the backups, and that's kind of more of a pick 'em then. If Rayola obviously was healthy, I'd probably go Nebraska, but it's kind of now a pick 'em. You could have had a really good matchup between Rayola and Drew Aller, but obviously those two guys are hurt, so obviously it's now kind of the backups, and I trust the guy specifically in
yeah,
Singleton.
yeah, because he broke his tibia, so he's done for the rest of the year. So it's going to be a very. I honestly think the play in this game bends the under. That's what I. That's what I think, because I just don't know if these backup quarterbacks can do enough to make it interesting. Although Grockmeyer, I think, is more impressive than who Nebraska has, though, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
So,
I'd probably. What's the over under right now? Currently,
it's the overall under right now is 45.5.
yeah. So I'm taking the under, especially if it's a primetime game. There's probably going to be a little bit of wins, over there. There's probably going to be some factors to it. Backup quarterbacks too. Typically, don't usually kind of start hot. They usually kind of take a little bit to kind of get their feet wet into the game. I like Penn State just because their fight that they had against Indiana not too long ago. In their defense, I think really played well. So I'm gonna go Penn State to pull this game out.
Okay. Let's take a look at some other games around the top 25 while we have a moment. Big game in the SEC this week. Missouri travels to Norman, Oklahoma to take on a Sooners team that is fighting for its postseason life. What do we think of this one?
Yeah, I mean Oklahoma coming off of that massive win in Alabama. That was obviously very very impressive. John Matz here had a really big game for Oklahoma, and then obviously for Missouri. I mean, bro, Pribula, he's obviously kind of doing his thing over there as well too. Um, Oklahoma, obviously, they obviously need this win massively. Missouri is a 3-loss team though. It's 5.5 point spread line. Um, I'd probably say Oklahoma covers, but I think it's going to be close. I mean, I feel like Missouri. I have been watching Missouri a little bit this year. They're able to kind of keep a lot of these games fairly within one scores. I know they obviously blew out Mississippi State last week. That was by 22 points, but then A&M they kind of laid an egg. But the last three beforehand at Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt's obviously been a really good team all year. They only lost by 7. They went to Auburn and won in a double overtime type of game, which is obviously a very, very tough place to win at. They won by 6 there, and then they only lost by 3 to Alabama. So Missouri, I think, has been really, really competitive all year, and I think that what makes this game very, very enticing. But Oklahoma, obviously, coming off of that big win. Actually, Oklahoma's coming off of 2 really impressive wins back to back. I mean, going to Ledyard Stadium over in Knoxville and beating Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and then obviously going to Tuscaloosa and pulling out that 2 point win against Alabama. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma to pull this game out because I know that they really, really need this. They've won their last 3 or 4 games throughout as of late, so I'm going to go with them. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the Sooners as well. I just think they have better quarterback play, and that environment in Norman is going to be ridiculous. If the game was in Columbia, I'd feel a little differently, but them having to go to OU, I think is going to be easier said than done.
Yeah.
And then we have a huge game in the ACC, big game for the ACC title picture. Pittsburgh goes to Georgia Tech. Pittsburgh obviously lost to Notre Dame, which more than likely means its CFP hopes are dead. But Georgia Tech still very much in the thick of things at 9-1. Is this a trap game for the Yellow Jackets, or do we think that it handles Pittsburgh at home today? What do we think?
Yeah, I was really curious to see how Pittsburgh would do last week against Notre Dame, and they kind of kept it a little bit close. But I think they're also going with the backup right now. They're kind of going their quarterback situation is kind of a mess. The guy that played last week had a really tough time. I mean, Notre Dame's obviously great, but he gave Notre Dame the quarterback for Pitt had a lot of costly turnovers, a lot of short field for the opponent. And
Right.
against a team like against Georgia Tech with Harris King, I'm pretty sure the senior
Haynes King.
Haynes King, yeah. Um, Georgia Tech. I mean, as a BC follower, as a football fan, they had that game last week. They had a double-digit, point lead game. Georgia Tech, obviously, they I don't know if they didn't take their opponent lightly, or they didn't play well for a lot of that game. They found a way to win, but it was just kind of one of those ugly games. I think specifically Georgia Tech will get the job done. They obviously know specifically they're one lost team. I think Pitt specifically with their quarterback situation is very dicey.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a dicey game for sure. Let's go over a few more of these before we kind of spend the second half just kind of rounding things out and kind of looking ahead to rivalry week in the second half of the show. But before we do that, let's go over a couple more here. We have another big one. This one in the Big 12, BYU traveling to Cincinnati. This was I need to correct myself. This was technically the Big Noon kickoff site game that's taking place tonight. BYU sitting comfortably and more than likely in the CFP field, assuming it wins today at 9-1 against the Cincinnati team that hasn't been bad, but kind of took themselves out of the conversation a couple weeks ago. What do you think? Is this a game where Cincinnati's home field advantage shines through and they upset BYU, or do we like the Cougars?
Oh man, BYU's 2.5. The total is 55.5, and something tells me this is going to be a shootout of a game. I think both teams specifically. I'm going to go take the over in this game. Cincinnati specifically at 7-3. They have a quarterback right now that's been able to sling the ball at a consistent rate. They put up 40 plus points in the last, actually 20 plus points in the last 3 or 4 games. Um, last week they had a really tough loss against Arizona. They're actually on a 2 game losing streak, but I do think, for my case, in terms of who I think is going to win, probably BYU, but it's a 2.5 point line, so I'm going to take the over in that game at over in Cincy at 55.5. I think it's going to be a really good big time game, and it wouldn't shock me if Cincy won, but I think if you ask me who would actually win one, I'm going to take BYU, but I'm taking the over as my real big time pick.
Yeah, I like the over in that game too. I think it's going to be a fun one. All right, moving over to a few more before we kind of set ourselves a different way here. Looking ahead into Week 14, obviously, as we alluded to earlier in the stream, Maryland hosts Michigan today. Maryland can still get into a bowl game, but it would require back-to-back wins to do so after starting 4-0 and now sits at 4-6. I'm going to tell you what, Ben. I was at the Illinois Maryland game last week in
Mm-hmm.
person, and this Maryland offense did not impress me at all. And I understand that Malik Washington is a talent. I understand he can do some things with his legs, but man, when that offensive line does not protect him, he throws him off into a bad spot. And I think it really waters Maryland down from what it can do. Do you think the line in the Michigan Maryland game is too wide, or do you think Michigan should be able to easily cover it? And the reason why I ask is because Michigan struggled with Northwestern and nearly lost. So what do we think?
Oh man, Michigan really has been really kind of relying this year on their running game. I mean, Underwood is more kind of a running mobile type of. Bryce Underwood's kind of more of that. And then Malik Washington, 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but he only has a 54.0 QBR rating. So that basically kind of tells me that he's very indecisive, like you're kind of mentioning. He obviously has kind of some breakout games, but it's just not consistent.
No, it's not.
13, 13 and a half. I'm going to take Michigan to win, but I have Maryland taking the points. Uh,
Okay.
I think it'll probably be like a 10-point win.
Okay.
Michigan to me just hasn't been offensively. They don't scream of a shootout offense type of team. They're kind of more of like a ground and pound, moving the sticks type, but they're not explosive. And I think Maryland specifically should be able to make this a game.
I want to agree with you, Ben, but I just can't. And the reason why I can't agree with you is because I was there in person a week ago, and I thought Maryland could score on a very suspect Illinois pass defense, and Illinois held them out of the end zone the whole game, which is something that I didn't think Illinois could do, considering that it's been without a few of its key defensive pieces for much of the season. So if Maryland can't even score on Illinois' pass defense, which is very okay, I don't know how they can score on a Michigan defense that clearly has been able to give Bryce Underwood long drives as the season has gone on. I want to hope that you're right, and I want to hope that the game is interesting, but I just don't see how it's possible unless the first half is somewhat close. So
No, that's fair. That's fair.
so we shall see in that one. All right, moving ahead now in the final 20 minutes of the episode, let's take a look ahead at rivalry week as we've already kind of established what we think is going to happen in some of these games. So, assuming that rivalry week is a big week, let's start with the elephant in the room here, the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. Ben, if you were to put a temperature check on this, do we think that Lane Kiffin is leaving Ole Miss, or do you not believe it?
I don't see you. I can see it, but I don't think so. I think he really embodies that whole culture that they have over there. And I mean, he's a guru. He's an offensive minded guru, and I think specifically, no matter who they have really at quarterback. I mean, he's fine. There's going to be obviously some teams that are going to try to find him, out there. Um, I don't think he leaves. I think he stays.
Okay, so you think the multiple offers that he's getting, the reported $13 million offers that he's getting, is going to entice him to potentially stay at Ole Miss? That's very interesting. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I do think that there will be some opportunities, but for a lot of coaches, do the coaches specifically obviously kind of want to go where the money plays, which I think for a lot of coaches they do, or do they want to stay at specific maybe a place that they're familiar with and they obviously have? I mean, it would obviously have to be a better scenario too. I think a team like LSU with obviously Newsmeyer, obviously this year has been obviously incredible. I think him with Newsmeyer would be a great, you know, coach to quarterback duo. It's now specifically though, like what he wants to do. I think there's obviously a lot of big, you know, offers that are out there. It's just about what he wants to
Okay. Moving ahead to some of the other rivalry games on the docket, let's talk about this one just because they've been competitive in much of their games, even if the record doesn't show it. Do you have any inkling, Ben, that Indiana Purdue is even remotely competitive, even for like a quarter? What do we think?
maybe for half the first quarter. Maybe maybe Purdue will somehow it'll maybe score a field goal and it'll be probably one of those games in which we kind of laugh at stop the count. I know a lot of people on social media. I know UConn a couple of years ago when they were obviously UConn for so long was terrible. Um, I know that at firsthand for football. But they were up 3-0 against Clemson a couple of years ago, and then Clemson just blew them out, like we kind of were expecting. So it could be like that. Illinois just has, I mean, Mendoza has just been almost automatic at a consistent rate right now with the way that he's been playing. He's been accurate. He's been just everything that he is doing. I mean, there's obviously been a couple times, but he will probably be, at least to me, probably the number one pick, at least the number one quarterback for sure in this upcoming draft. He's been unbelievable.
I think so too. If you had a vote, would he be your Heisman vote this year?
I mean, I do think he has a very good chance to for sure. I think somebody too that Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, I think also is a guy that should get some recognition for sure. But I'm going to go with Mendoza. I just think what he's been doing has just been he's impressive.
Yeah, he's impressive for sure. And again, as we alluded to earlier in the segment here, um, I think really it's just all Indiana really needs to do is show up, and more than likely they'll win that one.
What's the line for that, by the way? Is that
Uh,
like a
the
25?
line's not out yet for that. I don't think.
They probably don't have it out because they probably don't have to bother it. one was a produce like one win.
Yeah, or no,
Yes.
they have two wins. They're out of conference. Southern Illinois and Ball State.
Yeah, I mean, so two teams that probably it's gonna be a close game, but they're not gonna be they're gonna be facing the big boys here, so
Hmm.
it's gonna be a blowout.
Yeah, and then just looking over at a few others to highlight here. I'm just curious. So we have Miami taking on Pittsburgh. Obviously there's some ACC ramifications in that one. Do we think that by this point Miami will do enough to try to keep its playoff hopes alive, or is Pittsburgh going to upset the Hurricanes in Week 14 and knock them out?
Um, I think Miami will find a way to get in. I do. Pittsburgh to me, I just don't with their quarterback play. It doesn't. I don't trust it. Um, I haven't really followed Miami enough to kind of tell in terms of how their QB situation is, kind of post Cam Ward. But
Carson Beck's done okay. He has 18
yeah,
touchdowns and only 9 interceptions.
yeah, Beck. Oh, wow. I mean, Beck was obviously kind of looked at as one of the top guys a couple years ago with Georgia, and obviously he just hasn't. He's been decent, but it hasn't been to probably what he was expecting. 18 touchdowns, 9 picks. So he's obviously prone at the turnovers. Tony obviously being the lead guy. Malachi Tony's been good. The Virginia Tech game today. Miami 17.5. Virginia Tech, headlined by Kyron Jones. 55.5 QBR rating, which I don't really like anything with that. Um, but yeah, I think Pitt just to me just I don't really trust them with their QB play, so I think Miami gets in.
Yeah, I think Miami gets them as well. All right. A few other rivalry games to highlight because I would be remiss if I didn't.
Mhm.
Alabama more than likely needs to win the Iron Bowl to make the playoff. Auburn with really nothing to play for other than pride. They might be playing for a bowl berth if Auburn can somehow win today. But with that being said, do we think the Iron Bowl is a classic, or do we think Kalen DeBoer and company just handled business and make Jordan Hare a ghost town by the third quarter? What do we think?
Yeah, I think Alabama will probably smack Auburn if I had to say right now. They had a really tough loss last game against Oklahoma. I mean, it could have went back and forth. Ty Simpson is very very good. They obviously have a very good squad that they have. DeBoer has really done a good job, with that team, and with Auburn, Alabama seems to kind of always have their number for most of the time. They probably will. I'd say probably keep it close for about a half, but I think Alabama will probably finish it off in the second half.
Okay, and then the final game I wanted to go over on rivalry weekend for next weekend as well. Do we think that Oregon could go into Washington and sleepwalk, or do we think Oregon beats Washington in the final game of the regular season, regardless of what happens today for the Ducks?
I think Washington could give them a game. I feel like Washington as a team that is going to keep it close. I just Oregon is a very very good offensive team, so I think I think Oregon will get the job done.
Okay, and if you were not to give me your full playoff right now, Ben, but if you were to tell me about a team who's not in the top 12 but will be in the top 12 in a matter of 2 weeks, who would be that team and why do you think that?
Oh, it's a good question. Um, is Miami top 12 right
I
now?
can I can look at the rankings. 1 second.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at these rankings. I don't remember. Okay, let's take a look and see where Miami is. Miami is number 13 behind Alabama, BYU, and Utah.
And then what about LSU?
Oh, LSU's totally out of it. LSU's been out of it for weeks.
Okay. I mean, I go probably with Miami, and that's probably the team to me that they're right there. They have obviously a big game next week. They obviously, I think, with Carson Beck, they have the ability with the veteran there that's obviously been there, done that.
Wait, I'm just curious. Did you mean to ask me about LSU or did you mean to ask me about a different team? I apologize if I misheard you.
No, I asked about Miami first if they were outside, and then also LSU as my other kind of team.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Yeah.
LSU's been out of it since Brian Kelly got fired.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, Miami. I'll probably go with Miami. They, they
Okay.
seem they seem like a team that is pretty much right there. They only have two losses, and I think they're probably get in if I had to see right now.
I think Michigan or USC can get in. I don't know which one of the two, but I think one of the two is going to end up in the field within 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And then I don't know, man. I really like this Georgia Tech team. I think they're being disrespected. I really do.
I do too. I agree
Um,
with
and
that.
then I'm just gonna be blunt. I think, and this isn't me being biased. This is me having watched every game. I think Illinois is the best 7-3 team in these rankings. Who they've had to play, who they beat, their best win is against USC. They've lost to now the number one and number two teams in the country. And when you compare that to Tennessee, I just don't think Tennessee's resume is the same. And I would argue Tennessee should be out of the field. I think some of their losses were brutal, and I think the committee is weighing that Georgia game a little bit too much. What do you think?
Yeah, Tennessee obviously lost some big games. They lost to Georgia earlier on in the season. They lost to Oklahoma. They're a very, very good home team. They've lost to some really big time teams. Illinois. I mean, the quarterback you guys have over there has been really, really good.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's a good quarterback. He's solid for sure. Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's the reason why they are where they are, in my opinion. It's
yeah,
because of him.
yeah. He's been really, really good. Obviously, you did some good things against Ohio State too. Really good arm. Yeah, Illinois to me, I think they have a very good chance to. I mean, them, Kane obviously with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech obviously has just been a really, really, really exciting team as well too. They have a lot of good pieces over there, so it should be interesting. Just kind of see in terms of what happens.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna be honest. I don't think at 9-3 Texas is going to the playoff.
I don't either. I feel like they've lost a lot of just big games. I know they obviously beat Oklahoma and the Bowl over in down in Texas, but they've had. I mean, losing to Georgia. That if they beat Georgia, I mean, definitely you can make consideration. That could have been kind of a big stamp type of game, and they didn't get the job done.
Yeah, they didn't get the job
They
done.
lost too many really big games that I've at least seen for my liking.
I would agree. The one group of five, there's a group of five team in here that's currently ranked at 8-2. That's Tulane at number 24. Do you think Tulane gets the group of five bid, or do you think it's going to be another group of five school?
Um, I don't really know Tulane enough to kind of know. Um,
Okay.
I probably would. I'd probably go and say yeah. I think they have a chance. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, Texas Tech can come out of nowhere. They're 10-1, number five in the country. Do you think they're being disrespected, considering that their fellow their fellow friends, I guess, also in Texas, A&M, if you will, are 10-0. Do you think Texas Tech should be ranked higher in these current rankings?
I do. I mean, only one loss. Texas obviously, like I said, has a lot of really tough losses. I think Texas Tech should honestly have some more recognition than Texas because, they're right there. I mean, one loss specifically, you should be able to at least take a look at the resume that both teams have, and one loss should be able to kind of get yourself in there.
Yeah, and also you want to know another reason why I think Tennessee should be out? Its best win is against a Kansas team that's like, or no, another reason why I think I meant to say I meant to say I mean oh another reason why I think Missouri shouldn't even be in these rankings, Ben, is because its best win is against a 5-5 Kansas team, and I just think that's completely inexcusable.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I mean, five loss team, 5-5, 500. That's yeah. I don't really put too much stock to be honest, and your best win for that. I think there obviously is a lot more teams that probably have a lot better of a resume and obviously better wins against better opponents.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. So, with a few minutes to go, if you were to guess, what do you think is going to be the biggest rankings shakeup going into the final week of the regular season?
Um, I feel like USC. So something kind of tells me that they could beat Oregon today. I feel like Ohio State. I really still going to Michigan next week. I think there could be some really like big between the Pac-12 and between Ohio State's conference. Michigan. I think Michigan has two losses right now. Zan, right?
Yeah, there are two lost
So
teams. Yes,
I think the teams will kind of have the shakeup right now.
two lost team, but only one loss in conference, which is why the scenario exists for Michigan to go to the championship if they beat Ohio State, and those other aforementioned things do occur. So
Yeah. I think the teams to watch for the shakeup, um, coming up in a couple weeks, are to me Alabama, Michigan, um, Ohio State, Washington, USC, and Oregon. So I think that's about 5, 6 teams that I listed. I just think those specific type of teams because Alabama obviously has Auburn coming up. They should be able to win that. But they obviously have two losses. Michigan obviously has two losses, but they obviously have Maryland. They have Ohio State next week. So obviously, if they make a statement against Ohio State next week, that of course kind of really shape a lot of things as well too. If
I'm
Ohio
just
State,
curious, what is your justification for Washington? Because I heard you mention I heard you mention them near the end, and I'm just wondering, are you trying to allude to the fact that if they beat Oregon, they should be in the final rankings? Is what you're saying?
no, but I think that they can play massive spoilers. I really think that they can play massive spoilers that last week because going to Washington, just to me specifically, kind of screams a team that could make it close. I think Oregon is going to be a team that is going to win, but I think that's a team that could potentially play spoiler.
Okay, very interesting. So, With a couple minutes to go, just wanted to tease a few things that are coming up on our playback community. We have a bunch of NBA streams coming up, as Ben alluded to earlier in the stream. We have NFL Red Zone coming up tomorrow. Zanzinger Part 2 is a Sunday morning staple. We'll proceed that, so you'll get my reaction to all of the Big Ten madness that was today. You'll probably get a bit of a UFC reaction as we have an early card going on right now from Qatar. We're midway through the prelims of that. You also probably get a few more reactions from me on things we didn't get to. There's not going to be Bandos breakdowns this week with it being Thanksgiving. And speaking of Thanksgiving, Ben, first, are you looking forward to Thanksgiving, number one and number two? Do you have any exciting plans for this year's 2025 edition, if you will?
Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully, you have a good Thanksgiving yourself, Sam.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's
Yeah, I'm
always
looking forward to it. Thank you.
it's always just a great holiday. There's obviously every single year. It's kind of a time where you can just kind of sit back and just reflect really on the year. Every single year, I just feel like it's got faster and faster. And just kind of you have a lot of friends and family and people that you're just with that you're very thankful for. Obviously, outside the food, obviously outside the football is great, but it's really just kind of a moment in time of like reflection. And it's really really awesome to have. I will be having my aunt come over. She's staying, I think, until Sunday. I know she's obviously coming over. We're gonna have some Thanksgiving, with her. Besides that, not really a whole lot. I might be able to try to see if I can hit my high school football game, and on Thanksgiving morning. We're playing our rival team in the morning. So I might try to see if I can do that or
Oh,
not. But
really? Is high school football on Thanksgiving a tradition where you're at? That's cool.
yeah, yeah. It's every single Thanksgiving. Our high school plays the rival high school essentially in my town,
That's
and
awesome, dude.
basically a lot of the Connecticut conference. They essentially pretty much every single town that's kind of the nearby towns basically kind of play each other on Thanksgiving. Obviously some of them kind of have some big rivalry. It's almost like kind of like a rivalry in high school football that happens to be on Thanksgiving. So it's really big time stuff that we have kind of around here. And I haven't gone to it in a while. I mean, I got the chance to play on Thanksgiving for football when I was obviously in high school, and that was one of the best experiences of my life when I was younger. So yeah, I just think it's usually always comes down to the food, football, and then just obviously just thankfulness with family and just people you have around in your life.
Yeah, dude, all very, very well said stuff. My Thanksgiving is going to be pretty good too. I'm going to my aunt's house to celebrate the actual holiday, and then Black Friday, I get invited to this local turkey bowl every year, so it's
Mm,
cool. So I get to see people I haven't seen in a while. And I used to be a football manager at my high school as well back when I was there, so I get to reconvene with all of my ex teammates. So that's gonna be cool.
next,
It's like the one time a year that we all see each other. So that'll be cool.
yeah,
Um,
next Saturday. I forgot to mention next Saturdays because
yeah,
I'll be working a lot next week, like next weekend.
yeah.
But next Saturday I'll be having my 10-year high school reunion.
Good
So
for good for you, man. Congratulations. Are you looking forward to it?
I am. I'm really looking actually forward to it a lot. Just looking forward to some people that I've seen recently, have not seen recently. It should be good. We're gonna have about 70 to 80 people, I think, right now that are scheduled to join. So it should be a pretty decent turnout. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, I'm super happy for you that you get to do that. Mine is a few years away, so I have time to still get excited for something like that. But that's very cool that you get to experience that. And do you have any Black Friday plans? More specifically, as when I talk to people every year, they aren't quite sure. Or so just really quick before we scoot on out of here, I was curious about that. My main priority is probably just going to be watching Bears Eagles, and that's probably it.
Uh, Obviously, I work in the morning, in the morning until noonish around lunchtime.
Okay.
And probably besides that, probably just relaxing a lot. A lot of big time Illinois UConn is going to be on Black Friday, so I'll be watching that for college basketball.
Yeah,
Um,
I will be watching it as well. And if you have a post game live stream, he stopped by for a few minutes. So just as early heads up.
All
So
right, all right. I'll try to maybe do something. I'll see what happens, but that'll be at 12:30. Bruins I think play a matinee game for hockey. They
oh,
always have kind of early
Ben,
games.
just to correct you, UConn, Illinois is at night, just as a heads up.
It's actually at 12:30.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's a matinee game on Black Friday at MSG.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
So
Okay.
um, I'll be watching that pretty much running right outside of work. So that'll be awesome to see. And then obviously, Bears Eagles should be a very very good Black Friday game. We've had a couple Black Friday games recently that have not been fun. I know obviously last year's Chiefs Raiders that kind of wasn't great. There was kind of that controversial call I think if I remember at the end of that game last year. And then the year before it was Dolphins Jets. So I think this Black Friday could be the biggest Black Friday game we've had at least since they've kind of opened up that window. And then yeah, I mean Saturday had that reunion, and then Sunday not a lot there, so it should be jam packed, but should be also very exciting.
Should be exciting for sure. That's all the time we have. This has been another edition of Gridiron Gridlock. Hoping to do more of these in the future on a filling capacity basis. But for now, he's Ben Cruz. I'm Zam Bando. This has been a production of the Empty the Bench Podcast Network live on playback. Stay tuned for a bit of a lighter content week from all of us here at ETB, but you're still going to get football forecast. You're still going to get Forever Power 5. I will be back on this week to preview Rivalry Week and so much more. So until next time, playback community, we will see you all soon. Have a good one.